Hey everybody, welcome back to Cinema A to B, a podcast about film and streaming series that Ben and I get to talk about, and you get to be privy to our conversation. So today we're going to be talking about the 2022 movie Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. So Ben, what were your thoughts?
Wow. I just recently screened this. I think it's important for me to say where I saw this. I didn't go to the theater and watch this. I watched this at home, but I did watch it on the projector. And it was just me, late night screening. Wow. What a film. What a film. The writing is superb. This should win, I'm thinking at minimum 5 to 6 Academy Awards is what I'm thinking. I know it's nominated for something like 11. And it could win more, but I went back through on the categories I felt like it would absolutely crush, and it was close to half a dozen. And it's worthy. It is worthy.
So for me, the viewing was just our 65-inch TV, so nothing spectacular, nothing amazing, but put ourselves in a good, the wife and I put ourselves in a good kind of turn the lights off, got everything prepped, put everything away, and watched it, and really had an enjoyable time. So obviously I watched it a couple weeks ago. I'd already heard all the Oscar buzz and the, Golden Globes and what they won there and all that stuff. And so kind of went in with higher expectations of what this movie's supposed to be. And I would say it still delivered. I still really enjoyed it. Flawed in a couple different areas, but I'm going to say definitely that the acting was fantastic. Michelle, obviously she did really, really well. I was really happy to see Jamie Lee Curtis in this role and kind of playing this kind of, everyone got to play kind of two sides of themselves or two different characters, and it made me really happy. And as an actor, I thought this was a super fun project for probably all of these people who were able to kind of play a character one way and then play a character a second way and a third way or however. And then James Hong, it's always exciting to see him, and because every time I'm just waiting for him to say "indeed" and then go away.
No, absolutely, one of my favorite movies. Big Trouble in Little China, absolutely.
He was in a wheelchair too, so it was a perfect setup. Come on.
It was. What I would say though is he's in his 80s, but he still looks younger than he did under all the makeup. In Big Trouble. So, phenomenal cast. I have to think with this script that this was written with Michelle Yeoh in mind and no one else. In fact, I caught a blurb that they wanted to have her character name be Michelle. And she, I believe, pushed back, and so they went a different direction. But what a role, what a performance. Nobody else could play this, I don't think. Just with the way everything unfolds and the demands of the character, this is tailor-made for her. And I was really happy for her. I adore the movie Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And she really hadn't had a breakout role in almost over 20 years. I
was going to say, that's what I loved also. It's an indie film, so they aren't going to get A-listers, but, a lot of these actors are no name or haven't done anything big for a while, or maybe not as well known as, in the U.S. cinema thing. But, James Hong, he's been around, but he's always been that guy. I haven't, seen him super lately. Jamie Lee Curtis, kind of the same thing. She's not, she's done a couple things here and there, but nothing big, nothing to put her on the spotlight or people talking about her again. And then, it's great.
And then Huy Quan.
He's just adorable. He was still fantastic. Obviously I knew going in, I was like, this was, guy from Indiana Jones, Goonies and stuff like that, and didn't see him, saw him as that character. So, which was great.
And there's a subtlety to his performance that you take for granted because of what because of the central plot that I'm going to try to not spoil, with him having to jump in and out of very different personas.
Mm-hmm.
And he does it so effortlessly that I really took for granted until the movie had marinated in my mind at how good the performance really was. So his nomination for Best Supporting Actor is more than warranted. And everybody got a nomination. I tend to think that Michelle's probably the one that will walk away with the Oscar for Best Actress.
Mm-hmm. I do know he did get a Golden Globe for his performance, if I remember correctly, which is and well deserved. I mean, he was super excited about it, and just, I mean, one of the things I really, when he's jumping those personas that I really picked out is even his body movements, like how he was moving his arms, how he was gesturing was vastly different from person to person. It was when he was in a different persona, it was very particular and purposeful, whereas when he was kind of his original persona, it was just not erratic, it's not the right word, but he just felt kind of out of place, not always kind of nervous and always kind of gesticulating weirdly, and not really, I don't even know what I'm saying. Basically, he did a great job of separating the two personas, and even both the physically as well as the how he's talking and what he was saying and those kind of things. So that's great. Like, it was a fantastic job. I think he deserves the Oscar for it. So granted, I haven't seen everybody, but
right. And this goes back to a earlier conversation we had regarding writing. Mm-hmm. Where we mentioned that unfortunately bad writing can be mistaken for bad acting. Mm-hmm. And in this case, you have highest tier writing and good to great acting on top of it. And so you have something truly special, because the script is extraordinary. Although I will admit, I didn't really quite understand what I was watching. I didn't really appreciate what I was watching until about the 45-minute mark. And that's a really critical moment in the film. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to try not to completely spoil it, but that is the first big jump by Michelle. And once that occurred, I took a breath and said, I'm watching something really special. Mm-hmm. It was a good film up to that point, but that was next level stuff. The other thing I want to touch on briefly is I think this is a lock for best editing.
Yeah. I can see it.
I didn't see anything edited better than this. It's extraordinarily well cut and a very complex edit. So,
yeah, I mean, again, with all some of the jump cuts and the costume changes in like the same frame, like, it looks so smooth. It looked like it was happening as it's like, and obviously that's what editing does. But I mean, to have it kind of that purposeful and have it know that you're going to do these quick little jump cuts, it is difficult sometimes to line everything up perfectly. I mean, obviously the camera, usually you're going to have it stay in motion, but you have to get your actors all in the same places and all that kind of stuff and time it right.
Right. And I would be confident in saying that this film has been storyboarded to death, mm-hmm. and that everything was meticulously planned ahead of time. And so
it reminds me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was like, it reminds me a lot of the first Matrix, like looking at the behind the scenes and seeing those storyboards where they had everything. Like, I mean, it's why the first Matrix is amazing. Everything else should just be thrown out, because they took the time of like, okay, this camera's gonna be looking into this mirror, which is showing you this, and going from here to there. And they had all those cool shots, which all the other ones kind of lost because they didn't take the time to storyboard them out. But this one had that same kind of feeling of, we're going to try something, I mean, not different, not new, but we're going to pull all these things that films are doing now, but they're doing separately, and going to put them all together. And I really liked it. So,
yeah, another thing I noticed, and I should say, that great films, for me, are ones that I stew on and marinate for weeks, days, weeks, sometimes months later. And I have been doing that with this. I frankly can't stop thinking about it. And one of the things, especially for fledgling filmmakers, that should take note of this movie is it doesn't have that many locations, but they maximize them. And it kept the budget down. They made this for $25 million, which,
wow.
Yeah, it looks like it was made for $90 million when I watch it visually. But there aren't that many locations. So they were able to maximize what they did within each location. And frankly, there isn't anything extraordinary about the locations in the movie. But they're effective and they directly tie with the plot and the script and what's taking place. But this is what is the word I'm looking for? This is a mini schooling of how to maximize your locations, keep your costs down, and you can still tell an extraordinary story. And I was super impressed by that. And I could not believe they made it for that little. One other thing that makes it look like a $90 million movie is there's a ton of practical lighting effects that are in camera that they're doing that weren't CGI or any sort of post-production effect. And those things take time to set up, but the results speak for themselves, and you do ultimately end up saving money, and you get a better looking film by doing it in camera. And there's a whole plot point effect that involves a lot of lighting effects, practical lighting effects. And man, is it impressive when they do it and they reuse it. So yeah, really technically sophisticated movie that's sort of disguised as something lower budget, but in reality it was lower budget. But it doesn't look it.
I do say for me, the story itself kind of resonated, not to get too spoiler, but it's like very focused on being okay with the choices that you've made in your life and those kind of things. And I look back myself and I'm like, I've always had that conversation with myself of like, what if I had moved out to LA when you moved out there, like a whole year before the writer's strike happened and the, housing bubble burst and stuff like that. And the town shut down for 9 months, 10 months, whatever it was. Like, what if I had that extra year? Or what if I had gotten there, and when everything started to pick back up, would I have had a little bit more success? Would I have been able to, get it an actually on camera agent as well as a voiceover agent, and would things be different? But kind of with this story, it's like, yeah, there's all those ifs and buts, but you gotta kind of appreciate what you have with the decision that you've made. Like, yeah, there's always those ifs and buts and those kind of things, but it's just worthless. That's not you. So,
yeah, it's a very emotionally deep film.
Yeah,
this is not the classic popcorn tentpole movie. You're going to look at the world differently when you come out of this.
Yes, I mean, but I also will say they don't hit you over the head with it. I'm like,
no.
It's not subtle. No. I wouldn't say like it's below the surface. It's definitely out there, but it's not like banging you over the head of like this is what we're trying to teach you kind of a thing. It's just in with the story. It just kind of lays there, and you have to pick it up to really apply it to yourself.
Yeah.
But it was nice. Like so many popcorn flicks now, and where you're just like walk away and I'm like, well, my life has not changed at all, or I'm not made to think about what's going on.
Yeah.
Whereas this one does have a little bit of a, like, hey, think about this, apply to yourself kind of a deal. So
yeah, it's a very challenging film, but it has universal appeal.
Mm-hmm.
Plus the fact that it has 3 languages running.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that until I looked at some of the notes that the subtitles I'm reading, part of it's Cantonese. She's also speaking in Mandarin and then the English.
What, you're not fluent in those, Ben?
I really hate to break it to you, Alec. I'm not. I'm working on it. No, but it's and it not to get too. I don't think this will get too spoilery, but it does have something very, very much in common with The Big Lebowski, which is nihilists, dude.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So it.
Sorry, no, that scene.
yeah. It really does. It will make you question life and meaning and purpose, and but again, I completely agree with you. It is not heavy-handed in how it does it.
Yeah.
And there's another film that sort of challenges how people view life, but it was a far less accessible movie, which was The Tree of Life by Terrence Malick.
Mm-hmm.
And it shares some things with that movie, and I love Tree of Life by Malick. It's in my top 10, but it is not for everyone, and it's not a very accessible movie. And this really is. And this does a much better job of entertaining the viewer with some delightful action sequences, along with making you think. Mm-hmm. And so if this takes home Best Picture, I would be perfectly fine with that. I think it would be warranted. But again, I can't make that judgment call because I've not seen everything nominated. But I can't always say that I think something is worthy of that title. But obviously, you know that I don't hold the Academy Awards in high esteem, but that's another conversation.
1998, ring anyone bells?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shakespeare in Love? Really? Not Saving Private Ryan? Or the other things that happened that day? Shakespeare in Love?
Yeah. They thought it would be okay to give Spielberg Best Director, and that everybody else would think it would be okay denying Private Ryan Best Picture. But I've still not forgiven that. 16 or 17-year-old me is still bitter inside.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah. It comes through. It definitely comes through.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that, I mean, you and I both we've had this conversation before. Obviously, the Academy doesn't always get it right. Very rarely do they get it right. The only time I can really say with certain I truly agree with what they did was when Daniel Day-Lewis won for There Will Be Blood, but then No Country won Best Picture. Like, because Daniel Day-Lewis was fantastic, but out of the two, There Will Be Blood was, good movie, but No Country just was so much better. But I wouldn't have given Best Actor to any. Javier Bardem was fantastic, but I still think Lewis did.
And he won.
And
if I'm not mistaken, he did win Best Supporting, right? That year. Bardem,
I think so.
Best Supporting.
Was it? Here, I can take a look.
No, and that's still a heavy debate between those films on whether No Country really deserved Best Picture over There Will Be Blood. That's still pretty heated.
He did win.
Okay.
Sorry. You preferred which one?
Oh, I preferred No Country.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I had no problem with that. But There Will Be Blood I've seen it once or twice more, and it did not get worse on a repeat viewing. It was still impressive. But I think for my tastes, I'd much rather sit down and watch No Country for Old Men again than There Will Be Blood. Some of that's due to the runtime, but the picture itself, I just prefer as a film.
Well, and they're both kind of dealing with this evil, not really good, scenarios and stuff like that. So they're not the same exact kind of qualities, but they're very similar in nature of kind of what they're talking about, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I've seen them both, but I just remember kind of like Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's definitely, I think, the more watchable movie by the majority of the populace, where There Will Be Blood felt a little bit slower, a lot more character driven, whereas No Country has some action and other parts to it that kind of brought more people along with it than I think There Will Be Blood.
No, I think Everything Everywhere All at Once really checks a lot of boxes now on what the expanded Academy is probably looking for to award Best Picture. And I frankly would be very disappointed if Dan Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, if they didn't win Best Director.
For Best Screenplay.
And it's also up for Best Original Screenplay. So I could see maybe they lose out on one of those, but I would tend to lean towards the Academy giving them Best Director if they're going to award this also with Best Picture. And I do think it's worthy of both. You know, it has a international cast. They've taken $25 million and created something really special that I think holds up on a repeat viewing. I haven't watched it a second time yet, but I will. I want Gwen to sit down and watch this with me. I think she would appreciate it. So, yeah. And the other thing I would say is again, these aren't reviews, but when I look back at films that I really enjoyed, they typically will have at least one sort of defining moment where I get kind of lost in the process of watching it, where usually the dialogue falls to the back, the score rises, and the visuals just take over. And this did it differently, where the dialogue was in those scenes. It was kind of unique, but there were 2 or 3 moments in this movie where that similar effect had, that similar kind of everything falling into the background, and I was sucked in. It has 2 or 3 of those moments, which is exceedingly rare. And so is this in my top 10? Probably not, but it's fantastic. I enjoyed myself. It made me laugh. It made me cry. There was a moment that made me very, very emotional.
Yeah.
It's a monologue that Kay has near the end with Michelle. And the dialogue was, you wouldn't think it was a piece of dialogue that would become iconic, but I think it has for folks that have watched this movie. And so it's a very tough thing to do that for me anyway, as a viewer, to get pulled in like that and emote, and not feel like I'm being manipulated. So yeah, any accolades this earns are well-deserved from my standpoint.
And I would definitely say this is not a must-watch maybe, but definitely go watch it. Like, if you haven't seen it yet, I would recommend seeing it.
But you're going to have to sit down, clear out the distractions, turn the lights down low, and give it your undivided attention.
Yeah, if you don't like subtitles, skip it.
That would be the hindrance for sure.
Yeah,
completely agree.
So,
all right.
Thanks for joining us.